Two people retire on the same Friday. Same $1.5 million saved, same paid off houses, same haircuts. 30 years later, one of them has paid the IRS about $180,000 more than the other. Nothing about their investments was different. Their withdrawal order was. One drained the 401k first because it felt responsible. The other pulled from 3 buckets in a deliberate sequence. Here's what almost nobody tells you about retirement. The tax rate on a dollar is not fixed. It depends entirely on when it comes out and which account it comes from. Same money, same market, wildly different tax bill. This is the order that legally shrinks it. So why does the order matter this much? Because retirement is the one time in life when a person controls their own taxable income. During your working years, salary decided the bracket. In retirement, you decide. Every dollar pulled from a traditional 401k counts as ordinary income. Every dollar from a Roth counts as nothing. And every dollar from a brokerage is taxed only on the gain, often at a lower rate. Draw from the wrong bucket at the wrong moment, and income spikes into a higher bracket. More of Social Security becomes taxable. A Medicare surcharge gets triggered 2 years later that nobody saw coming. Think about that for a second. The account touched first can quietly raise the price of everything else. Most people never model this. They take money when they need it, from wherever is easiest. That single default costs real money over 30 years. In the next few minutes, you'll learn the 3 buckets and the default order most advisors start with. Then you'll see how the sharpest retirees break that order on purpose. We'll cover filling tax brackets, gap year Roth conversions, the Social Security tax torpedo, and the Medicare trap almost nobody plans for. Stay to the end. The last idea ties the whole thing together, and it changes how every number before it reads. Here's where it starts. Your retirement money lives in 3 tax buckets, and most people can't tell them apart. Learn to see them, because the whole strategy runs on the difference. The first bucket is taxable. This is your regular brokerage account and your savings. You already paid income tax on that money before it went in. So when you sell an investment, you owe tax only on the growth, not the whole amount. Hold it longer than a year, and the growth counts as a long-term capital gain, taxed at its own lower set of rates. This is the most flexible bucket you own. The second bucket is tax deferred. This is your traditional 401k and your traditional IRA. You skipped the tax on the way in, which felt great at the time. But the government was being patient, not generous. Every single dollar you withdraw later is ordinary income, taxed exactly like a paycheck. The IRS has been waiting 30 years for its cut, and it fully intends to collect. The third bucket is tax-free. This is your Roth IRA or Roth 401k. You paid the tax on the seed, so the entire harvest belongs to you. Qualified withdrawals come out at 0 tax. Better still, they don't count as income for almost any of the tripwires coming up later. This is the most powerful bucket you have. Here's the picture in dollars. One retiree has $300,000 in a brokerage account, $700,000 in a traditional IRA, and $200,000 in a Roth. On paper, that looks like $1.2 million. But the IRS sees 3 very different piles. The Roth is fully theirs. The brokerage is mostly theirs. And a big slice of that traditional IRA quietly belongs to the government, waiting to be claimed. Your real net worth depends on which pile you spend and when. Now, the classic advice arranges these in one simple order. Spend the taxable account first. Then move to tax deferred. Save the Roth for dead last. There's real logic there. The taxable account costs the least to unwind, since only the gains are taxed. And leaving the Roth alone lets the most valuable dollars compound the longest. It's clean. It's easy to explain at a kitchen table, and for someone who would otherwise wing it, this order beats chaos. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. That tidy order can be too tidy. Picture what it does to income over time. In early retirement, life runs on taxable savings, so reported income looks tiny. Then that bucket runs dry, and suddenly the bills get paid from large traditional withdrawals, so income jumps. And that jump lands at the worst possible moment. Because at age 73, the government stops asking politely. That's when required minimum distributions begin under the Secure 2.0 Act. The IRS forces a set percentage out of the tax-deferred accounts, whether the money is needed or not. Skip it, and the penalty is steep. It used to be 50% of the missed amount, and Secure 2.0 lowered it to 25%, or 10% if the mistake is fixed quickly. It still hurts, so the drain one bucket at a time plan quietly sets a trap. The cheapest tax brackets sit empty through the 60s. Then, required withdrawals overflow those same brackets in the 70s. A low rate gets paid on almost nothing, then a high rate on a flood. Which raises the obvious question. What if the accounts weren't emptied one at a time but sipped from all three? Here's the shift. Stop thinking about which account to empty. Start thinking about which tax bracket to fill. Picture the 2026 brackets as containers stacked by price. For a married couple filing jointly, the first $24,800 of taxable income is taxed at 10%. The next slice, up to $100,800, is taxed at just 12%. Above that comes the step up to 22%. Those figures come straight from the IRS in Revenue Procedure 20-2532. Now add the standard deduction. In 2026, that's $32,200 for a married couple and $16,100 for a single filer. That's income pulled at zero federal tax before the brackets even start counting. There's more. Congress added a temporary senior deduction. At age 65 or older, there's an extra $6,000 per person on top, so $12,000 for a qualifying couple. It phases out at higher incomes, and it's scheduled to run from 2025 through 2028. Worth checking whether it still applies each year. Here's what almost nobody tells you. Empty brackets don't roll over. Pull only $20,000 of ordinary income in a year, and the rest of that cheap 12% space is gone forever. It can't be saved for later, so sharp retirees fill it on purpose. This is where the gap years come in. The gap years are the stretch between the day work stops and the day required withdrawals begin at 73. In that window, income can be almost whatever the retiree decides. The move is the Roth conversion. Money comes out of the traditional IRA, gets taxed now at these low rates, and moves into the Roth. From then on, it grows tax-free, and it never faces a required withdrawal. The tax isn't avoided. It's just paid at 12% instead of 22 or 24 later. Think of it like buying next winter's firewood in July while it's cheap. The wood burns the same either way. The only thing you lock in is the low price. This is the single most valuable habit in early retirement, and it's boring on purpose. You are not chasing a hot stock. You are deliberately manufacturing taxable income in the years when it's cheapest, so you don't get force-fed a mountain of it later. Every dollar you convert in the quiet years is a dollar the IRS can't tax at a high rate when required withdrawals arrive. You are moving your own tax bill from the expensive shelf to the cheap one. Let's put real numbers on it. Say a married couple, both 66, living partly on cash. Stack the standard deduction, $32,200, plus $12,000 in senior deductions. That's more than $44,000 of income before a single dollar of federal tax. Now add the 12% bracket on top, which runs up to $100,800 of taxable income. They could convert a large chunk of the traditional IRA and keep every converted dollar taxed at 12% or less. Run that same conversion at 73, stacked on Social Security and required withdrawals, and much of it lands at 22 or 24%. Same conversion. The only thing that changed was timing. One light warning: convert too much in a single year, and the money spills into the next bracket, or trips other thresholds coming up. The art is filling the cheap brackets to the brim without overflowing them. And there's a bonus bucket hiding in plain sight. Long-term capital gains have their own 0% rate. In 2026, a married couple with taxable income up to $98,900 pays zero federal tax on long-term gains. For a single filer, the line is $49,450. Those numbers are from the IRS for 2026. Read that again. Zero. When income sits low enough in a gap year, appreciated investments can be sold with nothing owed on the gain. Retirees with modest incomes walk right past this every single year. The trick has a quiet second benefit. Selling and immediately rebuying resets the cost basis higher. Future gains shrink because the price they're measured against just went up. Nothing was paid to move the starting line in the retiree's favor. Let's be honest, chances to hand the IRS exactly zero do not come around often. So the gap years offer two levers. Convert traditional money to Roth at low ordinary rates. Harvest capital gains at 0%. Both quietly shrink the tax bill the 70s would otherwise deliver. But every lever has a spring. Push these too hard, and something snaps back. Here's what the wealthy actually sequence around. Not just brackets, the tripwires most people never see. Start with Social Security timing. The benefit grows for every year of waiting up to age 70. The raise is roughly 8% a year past full retirement age, a guaranteed, inflation-adjusted bump that can't be bought anywhere else. But delaying does something sneaky too. The years before the benefit starts are the cleanest, lowest income years, the perfect window for conversions. Claim early. And those years fill with benefit income, leaving less room to work with. Social Security also carries a strange tax of its own. How much of the benefit gets taxed depends on something called provisional income. That's other income plus half of the benefit. Cross the first line, and up to 50% of the benefit becomes taxable. Cross the second, and up to 85% does. The thresholds are low, and they haven't moved in decades. For a single filer, the lines sit at $25,000 and $34,000. For a married couple, $32,000 and $44,000. Those come straight from the Social Security Administration, and Congress never indexed them to inflation. That flat design creates something planners call the tax torpedo. Pulling a little more from the IRA doesn't just tax that dollar. It also drags more Social Security into the taxable column. One extra dollar of withdrawal can be taxed as if it were $1.50. Here's how ugly it gets. Imagine a couple already near the edge of the taxable zone. They pull one more $1,000 from the IRA to fix the roof. That $1,000 is taxable, sure, but it also shoves hundreds of dollars of their Social Security into the taxable column at the same time. Now, far more than $1,000 of income gets taxed. On paper, they sit in the 12% bracket. In reality, that repair got taxed at an effective rate closer to 22. It's not one thing. It's $1 doing two jobs, and both of them cost the household. And here's the cruel twist. The torpedo hits hardest in the middle. A retiree with very little income never triggers it, and a very wealthy one is already taxed on the full 85%. So one more dollar changes nothing. It's the careful saver in the middle, the one who did everything right, who gets caught. That's who ends up paying a 22% real rate while the tax table promises 12. That's exactly why the gap years matter so much. Convert before Social Security starts, and the torpedo gets sidestepped entirely, because there's no benefit yet to drag into tax. Now, the trap almost nobody plans for: Medicare. Part B and Part D premiums are not flat. Earn above certain incomes, and a surcharge called IRMAA kicks in. In 2026, the standard Part B premium is $202.90 a month, but higher earners pay more on top. Here's the sneaky part. IRMAA uses a 2-year lookback. The 2026 premium is based on the tax return from 2024. Medicare confirms this directly. So a big Roth conversion at 65 can raise a Medicare premium at 67, long after anyone remembers making it. The first surcharge tier in 2026 starts at $109,000 of income for a single filer and $218,000 for a couple. Go $1 over, and the surcharge applies to the whole bracket. It's a cliff, not a ramp. Picture a hotel that charges for the entire night if a guest crosses the doorway by an inch. That's IRMAA. So a smart conversion plan keeps one eye 2 years down the road. This is why the pros run the numbers before December, not after. You still have room to stop a conversion at the exact dollar that would tip you into the next Medicare tier. Blow past it in January, and you've locked in a higher premium you can't undo for 2 years. A little planning in the fall saves you a surprise bill that shows up long after the decision. Last piece. For an older retiree already giving to charity, there's a clean tool called the Qualified Charitable Distribution. After age 70 and a half, money can go straight from an IRA to a charity. In 2025, the cap is $108,000 a person, a figure the IRS indexes over time. Here's why it's elegant. That money never hits income at all. It can satisfy the required withdrawal, and it stays out of provisional income and out of the IRMAA math. Say the required withdrawal is $30,000 and $10,000 was headed to church anyway. Root that gift straight from the IRA. It covers part of the required amount, and those dollars never show up as income. Same gift, and taxable income drops by 10 grand. So the sophisticated retiree isn't just picking accounts. They're threading the brackets, the torpedo, the Medicare lookback, and they're giving all at once. Which brings us to the one idea sitting underneath all of it. Now let's be honest about the limits. This is not a formula you run once and frame on the wall. A few things can flip the whole strategy. Start with heirs. Money left to the kids in a Roth makes hard conversions pay off because they inherit it tax-free. But an estate headed mostly to charity can make converting wasted effort, since the charity owes no tax anyway. Who inherits changes the math. Then there's the state. Federal brackets are only half the picture. Some states tax retirement income heavily, others not at all. For a retiree planning to move from a high-tax state to a low-tax one, it can pay to wait and convert after the move. Geography is a tax lever too. And there's health. Aggressive conversions assume a long enough life to enjoy the tax-free growth. When health is poor, paying a big tax bill today to save one in 20 years may not pay off. These strategies reward time we can't count on. There's also the law itself. Brackets and deductions sit on rules Congress can rewrite, so leave a little margin and revisit the plan every year. So treat the order as a framework, not a fixed recipe. The right sequence for a neighbor can be the wrong one for you. So here's the idea sitting underneath everything. Once it's seen, it can't be unseen. People spend their whole working lives obsessed with which accounts to own. Roth or traditional, index funds, or something fancier. Those questions matter, but they're the small ones. Here's the bigger truth almost nobody says out loud. In retirement, it's not which accounts a person owns that decides the tax bill. It's the order they empty them. Think about what that really means. The exact same dollar sitting in the exact same IRA can be taxed at 12% or at 24%. Nothing about the dollar changed, only the year it came out and what else came out alongside it. Its tax rate isn't a property of the money. It's a property of the timing. That's why two people with identical savings hand the IRS wildly different amounts. One treated withdrawals as an afterthought, grabbing money wherever was easiest. The other treated the sequence as the strategy itself. Cheap brackets got filled on purpose. Conversions happened in the quiet gap years. The torpedo got ducked, and the Medicare look-back watched. Here's the line worth remembering. You don't just save money for retirement, you unsave it, and the order you unsave it in is worth a fortune. That's the whole game. Not picking the perfect investment, sequencing the withdrawals so every dollar leaves at the lowest rate it can. The market decides how much gets piled up. The order decides how much stays. Picture two retirees again, fresh faces this time. Diane and Marcus, both 62, same size nest egg. Marcus did the natural thing. He left the 401k alone as long as he could and spent everything else first. It felt disciplined. Diane spent her gap years converting, filling brackets, harvesting gains at zero. Her 60s looked strange on paper. Low income, small conversions, deliberate and dull. Then age 73 arrived. Marcus got hit with required withdrawals stacked on top of Social Security, and his tax bill jumped a bracket. Diane's required withdrawals were smaller because half that money already sat in her Roth, growing untaxed. Same savings, same market. One quiet decision about order, made in years when it looked like nothing was happening. Remember those two identical retirees from the start and the six-figure gap between them? Now you know exactly where it came from. If this shifted how you see your own accounts, share it with someone nearing retirement. Like the video, subscribe, and plan the order.